I turned all three of the stoves off. This one is cool to the touch. So is the Dragonfly. It's completely cool to the touch. The Whisper Light's still a tiny bit warm. The shaft here is baby bit warm, just a barely warm. This one's cool. Now let's talk about the packability. Let's talk about how small do these stoves fold up to be packed out. So the Whisper Light is very simple. The bottom priming cup is still a tiny bit warm. That's a small package. Let's talk about the Dragonfly. Let's see what it folds down to. So basically you pop one here, pop one there, pop this baby up, fold this over, and the Dragonfly will hook against the stove body. So that's the packability of the Dragonfly. So if you compare the Dragonfly to the Whisper Light Universal, the Whisper Light I think is a little smaller, especially in diameter. Now the last one, the Optimus Polaris, these pot supports pop right in, just like this. And look at how small that is, that package. This can thread around. It's very flexible, you know, and it can kind of tie in a knot if you want. But look at this packability of this. I mean, it's very small. It's definitely smaller than the Dragonfly by a long shot. And the stove has a lot of power. It's got the same power as the Dragonfly, if not more. So it's a completely different, you know, compact, totally compact. I really like this stove. I think they've done a lot of things very smart. I want to talk about the fuel pumps. Now, here's the fuel pump that comes with the Polaris. Here's the fuel pump that comes with the Primus Himalaya, which I didn't have the stove here for this review because it's in storage and I couldn't find it. Now here's the pump for the Dragonfly. The Dragonfly pump is plastic. It has an on-off valve on the pump itself, which is nice because when you pump air into the fuel canister, you can turn the valve off on the pump and it won't allow any fuel to come out right here. So that's a cool feature. So let's take that one out of the equation. Let's talk about these other two pumps. There's a few features that I noticed that are significant that I want to share with you. So let me get my camera angle changed slightly here. Okay, when you plug these pumps into the fuel bottle, you're going to pump air into the fuel bottle, correct? Now, blooper, let me cut right there and come back to right here. When you plug these pumps into a fuel bottle, the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to pump air into that bottle. After you pump air into the bottle, you're going to make a connection to the hose on your stove. That connection is going to go on this Lindale type valve, okay? It has a little ball inside and it has a little O-ring inside that the ball seals against, and it's kind of like a valve on a tire. Now, when I make, this one spins as well, when I make that connection, and I'll just use the Whisper Light Universal for an example here, because I don't have my Primus. When I spin this Lindale connector, and this tank here is pressurized, at the moment that this needle touches this ball and pushes the ball out of the way, I will get a slight amount of fuel leakage until I tighten it up quicker, because the whole fuel bottle is pressurized and there's no valve until here. The same thing with the Primus Himalaya. This portion has the valve on it, so you can turn it off and stop the flow to the stove, but there's nothing to stop the flow that makes this connection. So again, when you connect these two together, you get a tiny psst of fuel that leaks. On this valve, however, it's completely different. You can stop the flow of fuel with this valve before it reaches the Lindell adapter. So you can turn this off, pump the bottle, so you have all this pressure coming up, but it stops right here at the fuel valve. So when you make this connection and this valve's off, you get nothing. You get a nice clean connection with no fuel leakage at all. Then you can turn this valve on. It allows the fuel, and if you're using the Primus Himalaya with this pump, then you have a valve here, and a valve on the stove. So you turn this on, that gives you your fuel. So this pump, in my opinion, was very well thought out. Very well thought out. I really like it. So you see that? There's a big difference between these pumps. Huge difference. Again, it's because the fuel shutoff valve is here. Now on the bottom end of the pump, I like the Himalaya pump a little better, because you can pop this open. There's a spring, and then there's a little brass detent inside. Let me bang it against the table. There's a little brass detent that has a standard O-ring on it. Very simple. So as you pump, it pushes against this spring and against that little detent, and that's how you pressurize your tank. Very easy to service in the field, very easy to put back together, no tools needed at all. You use your fingers. So that's kind of a feature I like better. I don't like this hose because it falls out all the time, but it works. This hose, I don't know if it'll fall out over time or not. I do like the fact that it has a filter on it. So those are some options about the pumps. Again, I can't reiterate it enough. This having this on-off valve on the pump, I think, is genius. I think it's a great idea. One last thing, if you lose your tool with your magnet, you can operate it just like the Whisper Light, just like the MSRs. You can operate the shaker needle and clean that jet just like a shaker. This stove was very well thought out. Oh, before I forget, when you're coming and you're going to be using liquid canisters, or should I say these fuel canisters, with the Whisper Light you can use these small ones, you can use the medium ones, but when you get to the large high ones, they're so high, the fuel line, when the stove is in its normal position, the fuel line is too short and too stiff to use these large canisters that are tall. This is what you're dealing with. That's the downside, I think, to the MSR. On this stove, on the other hand, when you get these all folded out, you get it into position, the hose is longer and it's more flexible, so you can come up here, no problem, and you're not disrupting anything about the way the stove sits. Nothing at all. Again, I think it's a better thought out design.